born an athlete, you'll die an athlete. It's in your DNA.
You're an athlete. Live like an athlete so that you can be successful in life.
You're an athlete. Live like it.
ANA, America needs athletes.
Welcome, athletes, into the gym closet for another episode. Amber is out today, but we got Zach per usual.
Hello.
And then today we got Coach Ray Howe. What's up?
What's up? What's up?
So we're gonna be interviewing Ray. You go by Ray or Ray?
Ray's fine.
Raymond.
My nickname's Raymond or Ray.
Ray. Okay.
Yeah, my real name's Raymond.
Real name's Ray.
Yeah.
Nickname's Ray. I like Ray.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Ray.
All right.
So Ray's a new coach over here at West Des Moines. Started here already 3 weeks in.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah,
So
3 weeks.
So we'll be interviewing him, talking a little bit, catching up on. It sounded like old times in here. They're both small town Iowa schools, right?
Yes.
Both of you guys?
Very much. Yes.
Very
small.
You guys know the small town Iowa high school sports circuit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Best. Corn Belt.
Yes.
Corn Belt. Yeah.
We were Iowa Star Conference.
Yeah.
What's Iowa Star? How far away did you guys go to school?
So I'm about an hour and a half north of here. Like, so basically, like, how I would tell people is if you go on I-35 and you go to like Mason City or something up there north, like you would get on I-35 and you'd basically go right by my house in about an hour and a half.
Okay.
Go straight north. Yep.
What about you?
So then I'm like 2 to 2.5 hours on 169.
Okay.
Straight north by Humboldt. Went to Bode, Twin River Valley. So.
But did your guys' schools? Did you play each other at all?
Yeah, we played each other every once in a while.
Yeah,
Not a lot.
I remember, because did TRV close down?
Yeah,
or?
so they closed down my senior year, 2011. We played them. That was the only win we had my senior year.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was before me though. My first that was
2011.
So my first year was I was a freshman in the fall of 2011. So I remember like when I was in like middle school, because we had the same building for like preschool through 12th grade. And I remember like Twin River Valley, like on the pictures in the gym and stuff. But yeah, so that would have been, you guys would have closed like the year before I got into high school then. So yeah.
All this stuff amazes me.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Coming from a bigger school,
Yeah.
it's like it's amazing to see. And I know like my cousins went to the same thing, all whatever kindergarten through 12, K through 12 was all in the same building, all that kind of stuff. It's always amazing.
No, I loved it that way,
Go through it,
honestly.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I mean, people down here always talk about, like, oh, it's gonna be such a big change because like my kids are going from this building, like all the jump from like 6th grade to grade is so crazy because you're switching buildings. And I'm like, I never really had that. I never had that.
I went down the hall.
Right, like if that even, yeah. I mean, like I just never had the. Like, 'cause I was always, even like when I got into high school, I still knew all those kids because, even like when I was in 7th grade, they're in 8th grade, and it's all the same people. Like, no one changed.
You knew everybody.
So yeah,
You saw the same people in the library and the bathroom. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
For my school, we had to travel a little bit. So I started in Livermore for elementary, and then we all went to Gilmore. And then and then we went to Bode for a high school. So we had 3 locations.
Nice.
Yours was a little bit bigger.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So it's bigger as in geographical, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your Ray, your coming up in sports and kind of what what sports did you play coming up and kind of what got you into athletics and then we'll get into kind of what you do now as well.
Yeah. So growing up, I've tried like every sport, probably except lacrosse. So, I did everything in like the rec leagues, like YMCA and Algona. Did some roller hockey. In high school, I did football, basketball, track and golf, baseball. And I only did 1 year of the track and 1 year of golf. And then decided that I'd just take the break instead of doing either, make some money. And then in college, I was doing some audio engineering. And I had to go to Club Fest. And I was setting up a table, and some rugby guys with the Iowa State team told me, like, hey, you're a big guy. You missed football, all this. And they gave me the talk. They gave me the spiel and
The rugby recruiting.
yeah,
spiel.
the rugby thing. You said
love it.
you'll miss hitting people and
Yeah.
working out as a team. And so I was like, hey, I had some friends playing at UNI, and I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so, or at least I'll check it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, fell in love with it. That team atmosphere, you know, it's kind of crazy, but it's like what drove me to stay with Krave after joining it last year as a customer. And you know, that team atmosphere kept me into it. You know, the team drive and kept me in it with rugby.
Definitely. And so you started at Krave. You were an athlete, came in with the rugby team.
Yep.
So we do the rugby strength and conditioning, and you and a couple other guys stuck around for during season. We only work with rugby for a certain amount of time with their off season, getting them ready for the season, and then it kind of ticks down. And so you guys continue to train with us and continue to stay on the team. And so tell us a little bit, like you said, some of that's the team atmosphere, but tell me a little bit about your experience as an athlete at Krave first, and kind of going into what kept you training there and what made you want to continue to get the most out of your performance at Krave.
Yeah, so I mean, to start off with, we just pretty much did the 1 hour workouts with Dan as rugby, and then my roommate Buddy and I decided to just keep going because we liked the team atmosphere, and we thought we were getting enough work where we could focus on the practices. So the practices, once you get outside, starts to go to hand work and like really working on the form versus conditioning of rugby.
Yep.
So we're trying to stay athletic per se, and
Definitely.
you know, so Krave still kept that team atmosphere for us, and we just loved it. And then I brought my girlfriend in on it, and anyone else that would like to bust their butt for an hour with us, and you know, just get it done. We were both members at a bigger gym, but you know, we just spending the same amount of money. I felt like we're getting more out of it coming to Krave, and so it's been a pretty good journey.
Awesome, yeah, and we love having you guys. The rugby guys are always awesome to train. You know, talking to Dan and then talking to now Josh is coaching the rugby guys, and are you guys coming up on the end of your strength and conditioning with us?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're gonna end in March, or we're gonna go outside as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Right.
Current circumstances are probably gonna delay that.
Yeah, for sure. And so so like the training that we do with the rugby guys is very similar to anything that we do with all of our athletes. We have the 3. I think we do 2 with you guys per week. In the strength and conditioning, and then on top of that, they have practice where they're working on the sport itself. So we're working on their athletic performance, their strength, power, and then we get into if you're working on the specifics of the sport at any time, we're going to be working with the rugby team, right, and doing rugby practice. And so that's how colleges do it. That's how everybody does it. You do 3 strength and conditioning sessions with your strength and conditioning coach. And then you have football practice, you have swim practice, you have baseball practice, whatever the case might be. That's kind of the core of what we do at Krave. And so if you're not in a current sport, or you're not actively an athlete somewhere else doing a sport, then what we do, is we jump into more specific goals and get into some of those active rest days. That kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool to see that shift and see you even during season with practices continuing to train and all of that. And so then, we had an opening for a coach's position, and you also coach rugby as well, right?
Yep. So I've coached the Ankeny women's for the last 2 years. Going to transition to men's this year. But yeah, so I've done a couple classes through the USA Rugby. I'm a level 200 coach through the USA Rugby. Haven't got my Iowa coaching license or anything yet.
Sure.
Because that's a different entity, because rugby in Iowa is club sport, so you don't need
Is it every school is club?
Yep.
Yeah.
Every school is club. Whether their school supports them more or not is up to the school district, but the clubs are settled up and they're doing great, and hopefully we get a good season this spring.
Awesome. So the Ankeny team is that Ankeny High School then?
So,
or
yeah.
is it just Ankeny area?
So I think it's like the area. So technically, if you're just a rugby player in the area, you're supposed to go to the closest club to you
Okay.
if you're looking to play. But Ankeny runs both the high schools, and if they can afford it, they'll play 2 teams for the boys. They'll have like one for South, I think it's the Hawks, and then Centennial, the Jags.
Okay.
So they'll run 2 teams, but they're all under one roof.
Sure.
They'll practice together. But
Okay, nice.
when they go compete, they'll split in their halves if they have enough guys.
Sure. And then you play for Des Moines Rugby,
Yep.
though.
And then I
Yep.
play
And
for
that's
Des
the
Moines.
closest club
Yep.
to you to play at.
Yep. So
Okay.
closest men's club to play for here in Des Moines.
Awesome. And then you've been coaching with us here for another 3 weeks now. So how's your experience as far as coaching, and kind of how does your coaching rugby translate to some of your coaching at Krave?
So I've learned a lot just in the last 3 weeks on like how to really run a practice, and I think the last 2 years has always just been sink or swim, and I've just been trying barely keeping my head afloat.
Okay, sure.
But it's just being able to talk to the athletes, knowing how to what ones you want to push here, which ones you need to lay off of. I learned a lot of that with the girls and the guys that I've coached, and every person, every athlete is different. Some you need to razzle them up, tell them to get on their
Definitely,
horse,
yeah.
And then some you just they're doing fine, just let it be.
Right.
The constructive criticism is there or not there.
Right.
So mainly it's just getting into like what actually works for the athletes. Maybe designing something for my practices moving forward is what I'm really
cool.
taken from this. And then the public speaking part is just hard as well, but it's
Sure.
great to get better at it.
Definitely, yeah.
I think every one of us has probably been told we need to just talk with our chest a little more. Or,
Yeah.
Right.
Can't hear you.
Yep.
It's like, hey, man, I'm shy too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
And
no.
that's one of the big things, as a coach now. You're a leader, whether it's here at Krave or you're, if you're at rugby practice, and so it's underestimated just the amount of speaking skill or trained skill that it takes. After I've been in the industry training and coaching for 10, 15 years now, and so in that, it's just practice. I never started able to sit and bullshit in front of everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
just be confident in what you're saying, and all of that just comes with practice. So that's interesting that you say that, because that is something that you do get in the team sessions, especially when you come. So you were at Waukee,
Yep.
and then you came over to West Des Moines, and we like doing that just because we like to have you as a coach, not necessarily seen as an athlete over there,
Yep.
and then come and
No,
coach over
definitely.
here. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
to be honest.
right.
Because it's like, hey, some days I just don't got it. I just don't have it in me, and I don't want you to see that.
As a
And
coach,
then hold
yeah.
at it, hold
Yeah.
maybe like, well, I saw you resting,
Yeah,
Yeah.
how are you
barely
gonna yell at
making it
me?
through, and
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it feels good.
but it's tough too to come over and not know, your athletes right away, and having
Mhm.
to get to know them and create those relationships, and that's a skill in itself.
Yeah.
Is being able to, and that's something that doesn't really get talked about as a coach. Is when do you talk about someone on a personal level, during a session? When do you, in between, when they're getting a drink of water and you can just, throw a question out there and get to know them more on a
Mhm.
personal level? That stuff is important, and the intangibles are important to know.
Yep.
And so it's a skill to not interrupt their session, talking bullshit with them, but to
Yeah.
be able to bullshit with them at the
Yeah.
right times.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely,
I mean, that's a big thing, and that's like what any good coach has been able to do is when you're, in football practice. I remember if I'm sitting waiting to do a drill, or second team's in and I'm just hanging out, and my coach is there bullshitting with me.
Yeah.
And those are the times that you end up getting to know your athletes and being able to do that. So that's something that, again, takes a little bit more skill to get to know that.
And I think the athletes appreciate those types of coaches way better.
Oh, definitely.
Instead of the ones, like you're always confronting and like
Right.
fighting with. the ones that could be personal and talk to you outside of practice.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you felt like, I'm going to go the extra mile. I'll throw my body on the line for this, you know.
Definitely.
You know, the ones that were not so good about being personal with you, or whatever.
The drill sergeant type.
Yeah, the drill,
yeah.
you know, like
Those guys, you're like, yeah.
they kind of kill the sport for you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure everyone's probably had a bad coach that's made them not love the sport that they thought they loved, or
Right.
they got into a different sport, and you could, I'd say half the time you could chalk it up to a bad coach.
Definitely.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's a good quote, and I can't quite think of it right now off the top of my head. Oh, it's people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And that's something that, like, in one of my like when I did my coaching class to my Iowa coaching license, that's one of the first quote that they told us, and it really, I mean, it is true. It's whether it's coaching high school kids, whether coaching our athletes here, I mean, you can be as smart as you want. You can have your PhD in kinesiology and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not personable, and you're not able to develop those relationships with athletes in the gym, athletes out on the playing field, it's not gonna you're not gonna relate to those athletes on somewhat of a personal level, I think.
And I think that's not just an athlete thing. I think that's a professional thing.
Oh, absolutely. It's
I think
life.
coming from, so I have a management information background with the College of Business at Iowa State, and like they're talking about how GPAs almost don't even matter, because some of the 4.0 students, they're just robots.
Right.
You can't talk to them.
Yeah.
They think they know everything. They want to run the show when they need to be able to follow a leader to become the leader type role. So being able to be personable works across the board.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Anything
all
you're
life,
talking
yeah.
about.
That's why we always say, not only training like an athlete, but living like an athlete. And that's definitely one of those pillars, is being able to communicate and be the leader of your team or the follower in your team. There's a time for everybody to be a leader and be a follower, and let someone take the reins on something. And so that's a cool dynamic to be able to train and be able to hone in on as well. But so you said you'd mentioned kind of that coaches, good and bad coaches. So what are some good things that you've taken from coaches growing up? What's one or two things that you apply to your coaching today, that you got that are good from some coaches, and then some things that you don't implement because maybe a bad coach was doing things a certain way, so now you stay away from doing it that way. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I really dive that deep into it. It's kind of, if I'm really analyzing how I coach that much.
Sure.
Kind of just go by the feel of the feel of your seat, in certain situations. But definitely, I don't. If you're an athlete and you're mad at me, I'm not gonna try to push any buttons.
Sure.
So like if I thought coaches getting confrontational with any of their athletes, no matter what, and losing my temper, I think that's what I don't want to show to any of my athletes.
Sure.
Is that I'll lose my temper. I just don't think that's a leadership thing to do. Because
Definitely.
even if you had that kid that's been messing around, or athlete that's, he's a good athlete, but he wants to mess around so much, but he gets on your nerves. I want it to be he never breaks me.
Right.
And I'll never show that I'm truly mad, or that athlete has upset me.
Sure.
I think just being able to control that setting is important, because there was a couple times growing up, I had coaches be mad at me because I had ADHD and I was going off the walls, and then
Sure.
they'd be chewing you out, and then it was just we're fighting now.
Right. Yeah. You're not
I'm mad
coaching
at
me
you.
anymore. Yeah.
You're
And then you lose not only
you lose that respect,
that respect and that communication
Yeah.
skills.
So
that's
it's
awesome.
had some bad coaches like that. So that's really what I'm looking for, is how to. It's just always trying to look for what pushes your athletes to the next level, keeping them safe at the same time. You don't want them to hurt themselves, but
Definitely.
and then just being more personable with them is probably my thing that I'm trying to work on. Learn the names as they come through the doors.
Yeah. And that's
I think
hard.
that's hard.
That's really hard. Yeah.
And it's hard here because, even the last 2 years, I'd always have to apologize because I'd ask to call a girl or a guy the wrong name. And
Sure. Yeah.
now it's a little easier because I have a photo bucket.
Right. Yeah.
I should have done that right off the bat. My first 2 years, just took everyone's photo and write
Yeah.
their
There you
name
go.
under it. But,
Yeah.
you know, so it's a little easy when you look at the list and they got a nice photo by it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think it's really important to learn the name right away and try to get it honed in. But
Yeah. And that's something, you know, maybe our athletes don't know if you're watching live or you're listening to this. This is something that we take pride in and calling someone by their name. So we actually have, you know, coaches' guides, right? And so one of the things would be, you know, hearing your name at least 3 times throughout the session in the hour. And the reason that you do that is you have that positive connection with your coach. You know that coach is talking to you at that moment, whether it's, you know, critiquing your form a little bit, or if it's just saying, hey, Tim, good job. You know, now you know that has power in connecting you with your coach. And so that's something that, you know, that it is difficult, especially when you're new. And again, that's something that you're going to have to overcome, being that you came to West Des Moines and you don't know, you know, many of the faces. Luckily, you know, being that we're pretty consistent Tuesday, Thursday mornings, you know, you get pretty close to the same athletes that frequent those ones. The funny one though is going to be when you get you know, you always get some random ones that I always train Thursday nights. My schedule is crazy, so I had to come this morning. You know, so then that's when you get new athletes that. But then again, coaching on the fly and learning and being able to pick up on how that person needs to be coached, even when you just met them. That's a skill that you can hone in on too, and so that's awesome to see.
Yeah, because you kind of just get a vibe for, you know, so I'm someone when I work out with, like, I don't want to be bothered. I don't care what my teammates doing next to me.
Right.
I'm just knowing like my goal is to get here and there.
Yeah.
And like, so, you know, when a coach is, you know, up my ear and stuff, like, that's fine. I can handle it. But, you know, sometimes if you see that in someone else and they look annoyed, or you know, you're coming over too much, you can overdo that.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And disrupt their workout more than you are helping them. So
Definitely.
kind of try to read their facial expressions and it's their vibe when they're around you. If they don't want to talk, like, you know, that's fine. Like, I get it, because I don't want to talk. I can barely breathe half the time.
Right, yeah. And that's like going back to, again, like what you said earlier about, you know, knowing, you know, it's so important to know your athletes. You know, the better you know your athletes, the better you're going to be as a coach, just because, just like you said, we have some people that, you know, it's a spectrum. Some people, you know, want to say hi to you when they walk in the door and then say bye when they leave, and like, that's all, like, and they just want you to tell them what to do, and that's it.
Yeah.
And some people, you know, they're like,
therapist.
I mean, some people will ask every time I walk by, hey, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And then some people are, you know, it's all across the board, you know, so it's just kind of figuring out, you know, again, how do you coach, you know, each individual athlete to make sure it's the best for, you know, every single athlete in there, you know, so.
Definitely. All right, so we started doing this kind of by accident with Josh, and so I made it into a segment. Every time we have a coach on here, we're going to do a fast 5 for coaches, and so I'm going to ask you what your favorite is, and then you just got to rattle off. We got 5 things. All right, so this is just a way for all of our athletes to get to know you a little bit better, and just to make you think a little bit too. So favorite food.
All right, I'm going to go pad thai.
Okay. From specific place or homemade, or what?
I mean, the closer you get to Thailand, the better.
Yeah.
I like lechon. It's a Filipino pork, adobo. Anything adobo, pork, rice. It's a garlic sauce Filipino plate.
Okay.
And then probably just like cheeseburgers.
Nice.
The classic cheeseburger just goes a long way.
Yep, for sure. I love it. Color.
I'm definitely going to go blue.
Blue?
Never red.
Favorite sport?
Rugby.
Easy choice for you. Favorite lift?
So I like squat, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes I'm an arm guy too. You know?
Yeah.
That's the tough part, because you're a rugby
Arms and
guy,
legs.
so you're a leg dominant dude, you know, being a bigger rugby guy. But then you always got to get the beach muscle.
Yeah.
Favorite TV show?
Let's see.
Or movie if you don't watch TV shows.
Probably like The Office, maybe, is up there for me. The Witcher was pretty good. I like The Witcher a lot, actually.
The Witcher?
It's on
I haven't heard of
Netflix.
that. Okay.
So it's like a video game. Then I read the book. Now
Really?
they made it a TV show. It's all right.
That's awesome.
Probably one of the.
This is why I do this.
Yeah.
And I have to go watch this now. That's awesome. So that was 5.
All right.
Food Color Sports Lift TV show. Sweet. I like that. So, so moving on to some of our other segments, we had a pizza scafu that didn't get finished. So we didn't get finished, but out of the polls that did get done, we had Fongs, we had Godfathers, and we had Gustos. And then one of the posts didn't work.
One of them was weird. Yeah, it was like Giordano's and something else, and it didn't it was not working for some reason. Yeah, I'm
gonna blame it on technology, so not our fault. But those were the 3 winners for those simple votes. We didn't move on past that.
Everyone wins. Everyone's a winner.
Everybody's a winner. Pizza. When
pizza
you're eating pizza, when you're eating pizza, everybody's a winner. But Amber's gonna like this one. She can't drink right now. Obviously, she's pregnant. But February 18th is National Wine Day. She did get over the weekend. We were at my brother's, and she did get a Merlot that was like the alcohol-free Merlot.
Oh yeah.
And I had no idea. I made fun of her, and she'll laugh if she sees this. But I made fun of her because when she asked it, so it's actually. She asked for an alcohol-free wine when I was at the store, and it's literally in the juice section.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Do you want
like
this
a sparkling grape juice?"
Right. And I was like, "Do you want this $7 alcoholic or non-alcoholic Merlot, or would you like this $1 grape juice? Like,
right.
Which one would you actually like more?" And then I was gonna pop the cork and like pour the grape juice in just to see if she noticed, but I didn't. But February 18th is National Wine Day, so we are going to do top wines. I'm not a wino. Anybody?
I'm not. No.
So Amber will be the one that takes the lead on that, and she will be whatever the best. I assume the best kinds of wine is what we'll do, because there's like Merlot versus Chardonnay and those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
Versus
there's got to be 8 of those.
Right. I think there's 8 like whatever you call them, flavors. But I don't think we can get like brands because there's probably
way
billions.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, there's a ton.
And so like when I was looking at wine this weekend, it was like you basically just chose. And correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone's a wino out there, you basically just look at like what price range you want per bottle, and then there's just a giant shelf of that price range.
Right. Yeah.
Of different flavors.
Yeah.
And so I could buy $6, I could buy $12, I could buy $24, or I could get the expensive ones, and they all look the exact.
And I think they all taste the same too.
Right.
To me, they all taste the same.
Yeah.
Like,
So but we don't do cravings for us. We do cravings for you.
Yeah.
So we are to all of our listeners, and if you follow us on social media, these are for you guys. So February 18th is National Wine Day. So drink your wine and vote on what wine is the best. That's going to be our craving this week. And we got much more time. Did you have to get out of here right at 10?
No, we're good.
You're good? Okay. And so this week's word of the week is prepare. And so we talked a little bit, about preparing for practices and different things like that, and or flying by the seat of your pants, and so this kind of goes through the legacy part of it. It talks about what, how you can prepare. And the reason I started thinking about this word was I'm designing shirts for like coming up in March for St. Patty's Day, and there's a bunch of shirts that are saying like luck favors the prepared. And so it really got me thinking, and it makes sense because anytime that you're prepared, you don't really need luck. Anytime that I was super prepared for a test, I didn't study much, but anytime that I liked what I was taking a test over, it came easy to me. And so I was naturally prepared for that because I wanted to learn about it. And when that happened, I was prepared for the test. The test was easy. There was no stress. But then in some classes that you have to take your classes as a college kid early on. When I was in some of those, what do you call those ones? The first classes that you have to take?
Electives or weed out?
I don't know. Whatever those ones are. The ones that you have to take, those ones I always had an issue with because I really didn't care. I knew what I was going to do. I knew that this probably isn't going to be a big deal in my life. And so if I didn't study, I didn't retain that information, I got stressed from the test. I wasn't prepared, and it showed on that test score. And so that's kind of luckily I got most of those classes done because I brought a bunch of them in from high school. So random side note is if you are going from high school and you have a chance to do like AP and take the credits that you don't want to take in college, you can have more fun in college if you do that. So
yes, absolutely,
absolutely,
100%.
Do it. Do it if you
don't
can.
do what
Any
I
high
did.
school kids out there listening?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Take those credits. I think I had 16 credits, so I didn't take a math class since my junior year in high school.
Yeah,
Which is
I
so
think
nice.
I had to take like pre-calc in college.
In college, I
Yeah,
can't
it's
imagine
terrible,
doing a college
Oh, it was awful.
math class
I hated
because
it.
that would be the last thing that I would
No,
do. I would
I
never
hated
show up
it.
to that class. But anyway, so back to prepared. So the definition is obviously making something or someone ready or able to use in consideration, ready to be able to or deal with something. So if you're prepared for, even going into, transitioning now to work and those type of things, if you are prepared for a meeting, if I'm prepared for this podcast, there's a lot less stress going into it rather than just crunching 5 minutes before, which we do more times
Which
than
is
not.
typical.
Right, so we're not super prepared, which sometimes it shows, and so when we don't know what we're talking about, that's most likely because we're not prepared. And so preparation really helps in if you have a big presentation or at work or a big project that you have to get done, if you're not prepared for those things, that can be a huge stressor, and that can obviously get in the way of your goals, get in the way of your legacy if you're not prepared for the things that you have to accomplish as you're getting into the next stage past college into your career and those type of things. And so that's one thing, we're always we're working an example, we're always working on the next season. So here this entire month of February, I'm working on strength and numbers as our coaches and everybody else in the facility are working on their agility. And so I'm working on strength, trying to prepare that season and get that season ready for everybody else. And so that's something that if you can look ahead, if you can prepare for those things coming up in your life, it really helps you out, and it gets you in a good spot to be successful, to leave a good legacy, if we're talking about last week's word of the week, and to connect it that way. So what are some things that you guys have, should have prepared for more maybe, or two, prepared for and just crushed it?
Yes, I would say, let's see, so relating it, to coaching here, when I first started out, I remember it was, so for all of our seasons, we have like a Google Classroom, and we have, coaches, breakdowns, and you can look at, our workout sheets, and then there's a video for all 6 of the workouts for that season, and it really breaks down, 4 or 5 minutes, goes over the entire workout and really breaks down, here's this movement, here's the things that we really want to focus on. So I remember, when I first started out, and it's been really my first year through, my first one time through every season, every, day that first week I would, wake up and I'd watch, that video and think, okay, here's, for my sessions today, here's every movement, here's, what are the coaching points that I really, really need to go over. And now, now that I've been here for a couple of years, I really know, okay, this movement is pretty typical for, people will kind of struggle more with this movement. This one is pretty self-explanatory. We can, say, hey, you're doing this, and people can just do it.
Right.
So there's different ones that you kind of figure out as you go, which ones people are going to be able to pick up on faster, which ones people are going to struggle with more. But, starting out, I didn't know that. So, it was really helpful and really helped me to prepare with that, going through and watching those videos just so I could know beforehand. And, for our newer members too, what was it? A couple of years ago, we did not have the videos up on the boards. So it was just a giant clock. So it was like, if you didn't know what you were doing, like if we didn't do a good enough job coaching you and breaking things down, to the smallest enough details, like you weren't going to know what to do. It was just a clock. There was no videos to watch.
Yeah.
Those have kind of helped out now, and they help. People are able to kind of look up and see.
It's so weird. I look at like the memories or whatever in social media pop up, and so I'll see a video scanning, and you'll see just the clock up there.
Oh my god, it's weird now.
It's terrible. Yeah.
It looks so weird now because I was like, I think my first 2 seasons were that way. It was just a big clock, no videos. But yes, that was something where I felt. I remember the feeling of going into it and just knowing, okay, I've gone over all these movements already. I've gone over the list, gone over the agility stuff. And just knowing, it made me feel so much more confident going into it, especially my first, couple months when I, had never done any sort of, group coaching before, or team coaching.
Sure.
But yeah, I just felt so much more confident, going into it, knowing, okay, I have, a good idea of, some of these are different movements that people aren't gonna, be doing on their own,
Right.
and it's like a team atmosphere. So yeah, just having that kind of preparation beforehand and knowing, okay, I've, gone over all this, I know what I'm doing going in. And that, because, again, like when you're a newer coach, a lot of, your anxiety comes from, how am I going to, communicate with these people that I don't know as much. So, being able to take, some of those unknowns and be prepared with what I can prepare for at least helped me out. And then I could think of, okay, I know what I'm doing for this stuff. Now I can just focus on, building relationships with these athletes and things like that. So, yep.
Awesome. So what do you guys do? What's preparation look like for a team in rugby? If I'm prepping for because I know football, I watch hours of film on the other team. Knew if I'm in this formation, they're in that defense. I was a quarterback. I was on the offense, so I always studied all the defenses. What does preparation for a game against another team look like?
So in a high school, we're kind of at the level where we're still trying to figure out our offense. So we don't really get the time to put into watching the tape of the other teams, but we do watch the other teams, watch all other games. So really you're preparing hey, you see where we're weak, where we got scored on, where who missed tackles, where we missed tackles, why are we missing this?
Yeah.
So you try to dive into those, watching film as well.
Yeah.
You try to pick out who the fast guy is on the field, try to cover him as just like I think it's like any other sport. You don't want Tyreek Hill running against
Get your best matchups.
The D end, you don't want to line up your D ends against Tyreek Hill and get burnt. And just,
for 200 yards in the first quarter. Yeah.
So you'll match. You put the your best, what you think your best athlete is against their best athlete, as in the positions that they can afford, and really just focusing on your attack and. So yeah, it's very similar. I don't think it's too much different than any other sport for preparation, but a lot of sports it's mental. So you're trying to get those guys out of that, you try to keep them in that we can come out. You want to come out punching. Rugby's a very dominant. You want to come out loud and proud just to start with and finish strong. But
set the tone.
You want to set the tone early. We're not here to mess around. We don't hit lightly. Don't come my way type attitude. So, a lot of my preparation is that I've learned in the last couple of years is trying to get those guys that riled up. We've lost some close ones, and so I think that's where I would need to work on as a coach is to try to get those guys, come out a little stronger out of the gate. We finish strong, and have really good tenacity and whatnot to finish the game, but I think what bit us in the butt is come out hot versus warming up.
That's awesome.
Being able to sprint versus rolling in.
Yeah, and a lot of that, when I was an athlete or when I was playing football, a lot of that comes to me with, for a quarterback, more of I would compare preparation. It sounds like from a rugby standpoint to the defense, where there is a lot of mental side of reps, but a lot of it is just. I got to react and I got to be ready physically and mentally just to go balls to the wall, and so for me, the more I was prepared, the faster I could read a defense or I could make a change and be successful in that play.
Yeah.
On the defensive end, I'm sure that it's the same thing. The faster, the more that you can kind of predict and who you have to cover, and like you said, the fast guys the matchups are secured and you're prepared for that. Now you can just pull the trigger and go ball.
I would say I need to be better about taking it as an athlete. or teaching the athletes to be like more, hey, know who you're guarding. Like that's a like thing. Know who you're up against. Like if it's someone like, hey, you're faster than this guy and you can get around him, know that so that when he's lines up against you across the line, like that's what you're going to look for. You don't need to look for the pass more. You know, if you know you can really just get around this guy easy, he's weak at tackling, like you need to know that before. So like the coach's job is to, you know, get those guys the information ahead of time.
Sure.
So they can act out sooner rather than learning it during the game on the fly.
Right.
So,
because then you might have given up a couple opportunities where you could do something big.
You know, you see the defense, you see the holes, you know, attack here. This is where they're letting other teams. So it's either you're banking on that coach not preparing them and fixing that gap and attacking that. Or
For sure. Awesome. Well, yeah, so this week, you know, make sure that look into the future. I know that it's always tough, and we, like, when we came out of COVID, it was all, as far as our business in Krave, to me, it was tough because it felt like we were reacting. We were always reacting to different situations. There was no forethought, and because we spent all of our time reacting to a situation and making change live time, and I think that's happening a lot in a ton of different industries. But now, you know, at the beginning of this year, I finally kind of felt like we got caught up. Plus, then we can look into the future and prepare for what's coming ahead. Look into the next season because we don't have to make super big changes to this season because of COVID or because of whatever the case might be. So having that prepare, you know, being able to prepare now for the future. So this week, for all of our athletes listening, for anybody listening, make sure, you know, look at your schedule ahead of time. Look at what next week's bringing, and that's where I'm bad. My schedule, I know what I'm doing in the next hour most of the time, and then I have to look at my schedule to figure out what I'm doing 2 hours from now. And so, like, I have to do a better job of looking into the future and knowing, okay, I need to be prepared for this meeting in 3 days, or I have to be prepared for the season coming up, you know, in 3 weeks or 2 weeks now, like 2.5 weeks here. And so, like, the time flies. And so if I'm not looking forward, and that's kind of our action step for today, is look forward in your schedule, pick out something that you need to prepare for. And it could be as easy as, you know, preparing dinner for someone and looking ahead to stopping at home or stopping at the grocery store on your way home. Like, that preparedness probably, and I'm glad Amber's not here, that preparedness would probably go a long way in making your significant other happy. You know what I mean? And preparing those things. And so make sure that, you know, this week, let's think about being prepared for some things, and let's go above and beyond, look into your schedule, and get ready for the next event that's in your life. So with that is all the time that we have today. So thank you for joining us in the gym closet. And remember, you're an athlete.